Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today I want to take you to Hagerstown, Maryland, after the Battle of Gettysburg, where the female seminary located in Hagerstown had transformed literally overnight from a place of education and learning for young women to a sprawling military hospital. The wounded, sick after the Battle of Gettysburg, taken to various places in the vicinity of the battlefield, and a number of wounded men, Confederate and Union, were taken to Hagerstown for care. And the folks who ran the seminary let the army take over, let the Union Army take over to bring all of the Confederate prisoners of war and a number of Union wounded to be cared for as best they could in the heat of summer, that July and August of 1863. One of the Confederate soldiers who was there is pictured here. His name is William Thomas Blackistone. He had suffered a serious wound during the ferocious fighting on Culp's Hill during the evening hours of July 2nd into the following morning of the third and final day of the battle. Not exactly sure what the nature of William's wound was, but it was certainly serious enough for him to be taken away from the battlefield and left at the seminary in Hagerstown for care. Word of his injury, his wound, reached his family, who lived in the southern part of Maryland, and they responded. William's mother, Anne, and other family members made the 130-mile trek, probably by wagon or carriage, up through Maryland into Washington, D.C., and then on to the seminary where the hospitals were now located. It's easy to imagine Anne's instincts and experience. She was a mother of 10, and certainly raising that number of children would come and help, as she was now going to go into a very uncertain world where her son was injured and definitely needed some help. And especially having family there would increase his chances for recovery. In fact, Anne's husband, James, who was a wealthy and respected attorney in St. Mary's County, Maryland, provided a good life for the family. In fact, he sent young William to a college preparatory school. And when that was done, William went to West Point. That was in 1858. And you have to say it, though he enjoyed a privileged private education, he proved a poor student. At West Point, he was deficient in his studies. His conduct was not the best. The demerits were racking up, and he came very, very close to being expelled. However, in 1860, he was given a second chance and managed to pull himself out of the bad place he had gotten to and was on track to graduate. And then the war intervened. Like so many Marylanders at West Point and in the state itself, he struggled with the choice of siding with his home state or with the Constitution and the federal government. He chose to resign, and he soon left for Virginia. In Richmond, William applied for and received a lieutenant's commission in the state's Provisional Army. Now, that was fairly normal. A young West Pointer on the verge of graduation, certainly qualifying for an officer, and he received a lieutenant's commission. Now, this was in the Provisional Virginia Army. Now, once that organization was absorbed later that year into the Confederate Army, he had to submit a new officer's application, and this time it didn't go so well. Richmond's federal government authorities rejected it on the grounds that William, age 19, did not meet the age requirement, which was 21. Now, you can imagine a young man like William. He's impatient. He's had 3 years at West Point. He certainly knows the art of war and has had enough training to qualify. In fact, he did qualify, and now he doesn't. He can't qualify, and he has to wait for another 2 years to be able to apply and get that hoped for lieutenancy and a chance, an opportunity to command troops. Though he was disappointed, his patriotism for the South and for the nascent Confederate Army was stronger. So he enlisted as a private in the 1st Maryland Infantry. So time goes by. In June of 1863, just about a month, less than a month before the Battle of Gettysburg, William, he's now 21, he reapplies for an officer's commission. That application is making its way through Richmond's red tape and receives approval on August 18th, a little more than a month after the Battle of Gettysburg. William has his lieutenant's commission. He'd never know it. He never knew it. Why? Because he succumbed to his wounds at that seminary hospital in Hagerstown on August 1st, a little more than 2 weeks before the government approved his lieutenancy. One of those family members who was present, Anne, she carefully nursed her wounded boy. She gave all she could to preserve his life. What she endured watching her son's life gradually slip away is unknown. What she went through, the emotion, the emotional toll that it took, unknown. And it's highly unlikely that we're ever going to find out. She probably did not leave behind any letter or diary entry that revealed her feelings, the trauma that she went through. How do we know this? Well, it's a good guess, but we do know that the stress and the exhaustion in the brutal heat of that July and August of 1863, in that seminary hospital, surrounded by sick and dying soldiers, it compromised her health. In fact, she fell sick, and died of disease on August 21st, 1863, just 3 days after her son's commission as an officer was approved. She was 42 years old. So there you have the story of William Blackistone, West Point, resigned, joined the Confederacy, joined a Maryland Infantry Regiment, Confederate, mortally wounded at Gettysburg. His mother tries to help him, loses her life. Thanks for listening. See you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.